Hi, folks. Tacitus today at your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about how leaks of sensitive government or related information to the public, leakers leaking it to the newspapers or whatever, or the media generally, how the departments of justice and the organs of investigation and policing and so on, how they're very selective in how they have an outcome. So if if somebody leaks something that injures the program of the globalists, then they're found out quick smart and they're treated with utmost brutality by the legal establishment, or the government-controlled legal and political establishment. But if somebody leaks information that is approved of by the globalists in an area where the globalists maybe don't have enough or the total control that they want and so often have in so many areas, someone leaks information there, then somehow magically, no matter how thorough and detailed we're told the investigation is, they just don't seem to find we just don't know who it is. We've tried everything. We've investigated high and low and left and right. We just can't find who it is. Now, such a situation came up recently. So there was a leak from a government department or a public service department in the United States, and it turns out that was probably the only department that the globalists do not control, do not have outright control of. And their vision of taking, and they were outraged, absolutely screaming, tantrum throwing, kicking legs in the air, outrage that they did not achieve control of this organ of government, which they deemed as pivotal to or very much a central part of the globalist project and pushing forward. With outrage, they were screaming. Now, it just turns out that the unexpected, from the globalist point of view, the unexpected Trump presidency denied them control of this particular public service government department, and so they moved to Plan B. They obviously had a good strategy planning meeting about it, and they moved to Plan B. So they said, well, whilst we can't alter the appointment of the key people in this government department, what we can do is we can control the administrative staff and the clerks and the other people in and around this department. We can control that. So we can, whilst we can't control the main office holders, we can control who all the administrative staff are. So we can stack the staff with activists and so on. And these activists will advise us in advance. They'll tell the globalists in advance of what the judges are thinking, of what the various office holders are considering, what decisions they may make, and things like that. So in that sense, they can keep tabs, very tight control. So if these office holders decide to, look like they're going to make a decision that the globalists don't like, they can instantly get onto the street with an activist campaign, including having goon squad mobs outside of the houses of these office holders, intimidating them and threatening them, and magically the Justice Department and the police that will crack down viciously crack down on anything on the other side. The police and the Justice Department will be, almost nowhere in sight. They're not going to make any prosecutions because it's them that are organising the mob to intimidate these office holders. Now, there's an investigation done now. I was having a look at this. Now, the person who was heading up the investigation is very much an affirmative action hire. She is an affirmative action poster child from the early days, breaking the glass ceiling and this sort of stuff. And she's a lesbian and is an activist. Certainly, in my view, is an activist in the areas of social justice and social engineering and evil straight white males running the world. That something has to be done about that to increase social justice and so on. So this is the person tasked with investigating a sensitive leak, and so given that the leak of information was very much part of the political activism, falls neatly, or if not perfectly, in line with the political activism of this investigator, then it's hardly surprised the investigator comes up after a number of months and says, gee, I can't find who it is. I just don't know. Now, this is beyond implausible, given that at the very outside, the amount of people that would have access to the information would be less than 100 people. I would think less than 80 people, really. And the people on the periphery of that would only possibly have had access to that information, whereas the inner sanctum, if you like, of people is probably under 60 people. So you don't have many people to investigate now. Some of those people you could they wouldn't have been there at the time, or they'd have been on vacation, or this. There are people there that wouldn't have been around, and you've also got quite a tight time frame from when that information was available to the time it was leaked. So you've got 60 people or less operating within like a 10-day time frame. So that narrows it down quite considerably. So the inability to find out who the leaker was is just nonsense. Even an investigator of high school level could have found out who it was, I believe. But because the leak benefited the globalist Democrats, then it was, we don't really want to know who did it. Maybe we can use them again in the future. So I just want to look at the architecture of this reasoning, though, because they can't control the office holders of this government department. They then stack it with activists at the administrative level. So in effect, they have not necessarily control, but they have now they can exert all sorts of influence. Indirectly, they can tip off the politically active groups, and so you better get there and do some demonstrating. The media can be running stories condemning the office holders and so on and so forth. So here's a situation where the deep state, how they can exert control over a government department indirectly and through various means of intimidation. Yeah, and seriously, if you're an office holder in this government department and you don't know, who you're, who's spying on you, who's recording you, who's leaking your doc, you don't know. It could be anybody. Maybe you've got an idea who it is, but you're not the one in control of their appointment. So, the political establishment is forcing these activists on you, and you have to tolerate them and so on. So this is how the deep state can exert control over a government department where they actually don't control the people. Now, you can do the same thing with, say, a politician, particularly if it's a lazy, incompetent politician, which most of them are. And then you can stack their office with interns and assistants and advisors, and you can stack committees with activists and so on, so that they will try and nudge the wording of legislation or nudge press releases in a certain direction. And maybe they can't nudge it all the way, but they can nudge it some degrees, a few steps over to the left or whatever. And so again, you can exert sort of quite a lot of control over, say, a politician that may be opposed to globalization, but you can manage to stack their office with, or maybe to get an intern in there who's a very willing intern who'll work all sorts of hours, do anything you want, and is very agreeable, yes sir, no sir, and all this sort of thing. But in reality, they're employed by some external group that's paying them handsomely to, in effect, subvert the the politician who may be either lukewarm or against globalization. But it just illustrates the power of the deep state, not only in things like funding district attorneys that hate the United States and that sort of thing, or funding all sorts of activists. And really, if you look at the NGO, the wider NGO machine, they are effectively now in charge of training, as in cadet trainees and mind control and indoctrination. They are in fact training the entire cadre of government officials and of government functionaries and clerks and interns and so on. And the activist mentality of these people when they come to government is that, or to advise a politician or anything like that, is that we surround everybody is a Nazi except for me, and I have to fight back against it. I mean, it's insane, but that's where we're at, and really all the safeguards that exist to stop this sort of thing of happening, all of them have failed, and it's a very sad day for Western civilization that we've got to this place. You've been with Tacitus today at your Pushback Challenge. Thank you for listening.